Okay, good day, guys. Time for African Poem by Agostinho Neto. Now, obviously, this poem is about Africa, but to be more specific, it is about Angola. Agostinho Neto was Angolan, and he specifically wrote about colonialism. So, the colonials from Britain coming in, taking the land, causing the people to suffer, in all honesty. So when Neto speaks throughout this poem, it is lyrical, even though there's no set rhyme scheme. It's free verse. But what he's trying to communicate in this poem is basically the natural splendor, the natural beauty, not only of Africa, but of Africa's people. And he is emphasizing that throughout the poem. So we're going to have a look at that. It shouldn't take us too long. We just need to understand what's going on. There's not too much to analyze. Okay, there on the horizon, the fire and the dark silhouettes of the imbondeiro trees with their arms raised in the air. Let's stop there. Okay, so there on the horizon, to think about a horizon is typically African. Okay, it's a far off place, but it's often also a place of hope, a place of new beginnings. Okay. But now the speaker says on the horizon there's fire and dark silhouettes. Okay, so the fire can refer to actual fire, or it can also refer to the sun as it is setting for nighttime. Because for the rest of the poem, for a while, we're going into the nighttime and what it is like during the night in these African villages. So it can either be fire or it can be the sun. If it is fire, that indicates that it is some sort of destructive element. It could possibly refer to the colonialists that came in to destroy basically all that is natural and beautiful in Africa. Okay, and the dark silhouettes of the imbondeiro trees with their arms raised. Okay, dark silhouettes, these are shadows. Okay, so a silhouette is a shadow that you can clearly see what this shadow is of. So if we are looking at a person and I can see the silhouette of the person on the wall, that means I see exactly the outline of that person. I can recognize the shadow. It's not something else. I can clearly recognize it. So it's a silhouette. So dark shadows, dark silhouettes of the imbondeiro trees. Now, what an imbondeiro tree is it is a baobab tree. I don't know if you guys know what a baobab is. It's a rather large tree that looks like, and it's often described as an upside down tree because its branches look like they are roots. As they are sprouting from the tree upwards, they seem like they are roots with hands attached to the ends where their growth point is. So the baobab trees are very large, very strong, and they are very typical of Africa. They are indigenous. As far as I understand, the baobab tree is indigenous to Africa. So you're not going to find this tree anywhere else. You can only find it in Africa. Very typical of Africa. The other thing is that for Angola, the baobab tree equals a sign of strength of the people. It's a national thing. Okay, indicates strength. Okay. So these baobabs have their arms raised because that's how they look. It's like we said, yeah, it looks like an upside down tree. With its roots sticking in the air. Please remember, this is not what it actually is. This is what it looks like. It's in the air. And it's not like a normal tree. Once again, I have to try and explain this. It's not like a normal tree where the branches go out and it's filled with foliage and leaves, etc. Literally all you can see from a baobab tree is it goes up the tree pretty straight, and only at the very top of the tree these root-like branches come out. So when it says that the baobab trees or the imbondeiro trees have their arms raised, it looks like they have their arms raised because of the way that they seem, with their roots in the air. Their branches resemble arms. Their branches resemble arms. And that is why their arms are raised, because they are in the air. Obviously, because it's a tree and it grows upwards. Okay. Note the use of personification here. I must just point that out, as the tree does not actually have arms. Okay. In the air, they're still talking here about the imbondeiro trees with their arms raised in the air, and there is a green smell of burnt palm trees. Sorry, just hang on. Okay. In the air, the green smell of burnt palm trees. Note that it is the color green is used because that is the color of the palm trees. They are green. They don't actually smell green. You can't smell green, but it is a metaphor. And the smell of the burnt palm trees, remember they use palm trees in making and cultivating a fire. So that is also why the palm trees are burning, or why they are burnt. It's used to cultivate fire. And yeah, with fire, I'm talking about the kind of fire that you can use to sit around or cook on. It's not the kind of fire that destroys. Just to cultivate a fire naturally. Okay. This is what we have here now, is the basic natural description of Africa. Okay, this is all a natural description. Let's put that there. The natural beauty or the natural splendor of Africa. Okay, when we move on from there and we go on to the next few lines, we are talking about the people of Africa or the people of Angola. These people are described as being very specific to this context. So it's not like typical people we might find in South Africa or in another African country. It is, we have to kind of focus, not only are we focusing on Africa, but we're also focusing, or we have to keep in the back of our minds that we are talking about Angola. Okay, so on the road, the line of Bailando porters groaning under loads of Cruera. Okay, now Bailando is a town, okay, and on the road, the line of Bailando porters. The porters are people that sell things, okay? Sell and they move them. And these guys are groaning under the loads. It's very heavy. Very heavy. A lot of it. Porters groaning under loads of Cruera. Cruera, I'm sorry if I'm saying that incorrectly. I think I'm struggling a bit with my R's. Okay, Cruera is a byproduct from processing cassava, which is a root vegetable. Which is a root vegetable. Okay, so we have cassava. I'm not going to write this down. It's not important to remember. So we have this thing called cassava, and cassava is a vegetable. Okay, and when you are processing the cassava, whatever is left over after you have processed the cassava, that is called Cruera. I'm assuming that they use it for building, or maybe perhaps medicine, but there is some use to it. Okay, so the Cruera is, let's just call it material for building or in general making things. Okay, so this is their job, and it's a difficult job because it's, their job that they do every day when they're traveling from where they are gathering these vegetables to the town of Bailando. They say that they are groaning under loads of this Cruera, which means that it is a difficult job. It is a very heavy job to do. Difficult job, not necessarily pleasant, but it's what they have to do in order to survive. Okay. In the room, now we're moving into, let's just make this. Okay, so here we spoke about workers. Okay, now we're going to be a bit more intimate. We are going to the room of some native who lives here. And in the room, we can find the sweet-eyed mulatress. Okay, now what is a mulatress? A mulatress is someone of mixed race. In this case, it is someone who was born from a white colonialist and a native of Angola, native woman. Okay. This goes to show even further the how the colonialists inserted themselves into Africa and into the country to the extent that they are, I almost want to say, muddying the bloodline. So, natives are being sort of led into a time where they are no longer just natives in Africa as it should be, but the colonialists have now brought in a different race and a different culture. And it messes with the natives, and it messes with the whole natural splendor of Africa. So the colonialists affected the natives to a great extent, and not in a good way. Okay, this mulatress, let's just say that it is a woman, in case you forget. This mulatress is retouching her face, so she is doing makeup with rouge and rice powder. So rouge is actually the color red. It could be that she has taken clay and crushed it into a fine powder, and then you mix that with water and you basically get something like paint. So she has this red substance that she uses as makeup, just like we would use lipstick or even perhaps blush on her cheeks. All right. The rice powder would be rice that has been crushed into a fine powder. And then with the rice powder, you can definitely powder your cheeks, ladies. Okay, so the woman, under her many clothes, moving her hips. And now the impression that is being given off by the woman is that she is going about her daily business, doing what she needs to do, but she doesn't seem too unhappy. All right, she's moving her hips, which means that she is dancing, most likely dancing, wearing her many clothes. I think this refers to traditional clothing. Okay. And that is where we have the woman that we're talking about. And then we are going to look at the man that is mentioned in the poem. He is on the bed and he is sleepless, thinking of buying knives and forks to eat with at a table. Okay, so this man seems a little bit stressed out. Man. Okay, he is lying there. He's unable to sleep, which means that he is probably stressed or anxious. Because if you are stressed or anxious, that is when you struggle to sleep. Okay, and he is thinking. That is probably why he is stressed or anxious. He is thinking the whole time. His mind is in overdrive. Thinking about buying knives and forks to eat with at a table. Now, the interesting thing here is that he's thinking about buying knives and forks to eat at a table, but this is not very African-like. Knives, forks, table. This seems more like a colonialist thing. These three things. They are more colonialist. And it further goes to show the impact that the colonials had on natural Africa. Okay, if you can't see it, there it is. Okay. So yes, this man is thinking, he's overthinking, he's thinking that he wants to buy cutlery and a table that he can eat at. That's all most likely coming from colonialists and what they believe the proper way or the proper method is of doing things. Okay, let's move on. Now we're going back into sort of a community setting. On the sky, the reflections of the fire, and we're going to go there just now. The fire reflecting on the sky is simply, when it's dark, you can see the fire at a distance. And you see it in the sky. You can imagine during nighttime when there's a big fire somewhere, you know what that light that comes from the fire looks like. And it stretches quite far upwards. Okay, so when it's nighttime and the fires have been lit. Remember, no electricity. This is natural Africa. Not to mention during the time this was written, I don't think there was such a thing as... No, they must have been. Yeah, sorry, I don't know history very well. When it's night and the fires have been lit. Usually the fires are used for cooking, obviously, but also for gathering around, for telling stories, for music and dancing. The fire is a very integral part of Africanism, of the African natives. So, when we once again talk about, let me move this. When we once again talk about the silhouettes, you know now what a silhouette is. The silhouette of the blacks at the drums with their arms raised. Okay, so the blacks, obviously, I don't like that word. It would be the natives. At the drums, something that is also very uniquely African. Not uniquely African. Well, African drums are uniquely African. So it is an African element. Okay, and basically it is so easy to see what they are doing because you can see the big silhouettes, the big shadows. You know, as if a person is standing here, the shadow grows the further it goes. All right. So say there's a wall here and the person is standing here, then there's going to be a big shadow, a big silhouette against the wall. So chances are that they are seeing these shadows and these silhouettes in the fire, in the lights of the fire, moving around. You can imagine nighttime around the fire, singing, dancing, music, stories. Yeah. Now, the important thing here where it says that their arms are raised is that it reminds us of another line in the poem. Let's go look. Look at this. The imbondeiro trees with their arms raised. Okay, so when we go over here and we talk about the native people with their drums and their arms raised, not only are we talking about activities or about drumming around a fire, which is also typical African. Let's say, yeah. But it also echoes what the poem said earlier, about the imbondeiro trees. So there is an indirect comparison being made here. Comparison between the drummers and the imbondeiro trees. Okay. In the air, the warm tune of marimbas. Okay, warm. When we say that it was warm, not only are we talking about the weather, but it's also warm around the fire. And there is the sound of the marimbas playing. This draws back to the drums. You can go take a look. Marimbas are also a very specific African instrument. It's like a keyboard almost, and then you hit it with what looks like drumsticks with a big thing at the end. And there are a lot of keys that you do. There are different types of marimbas, and together they can form a very, very nice sound. So the marimbas are a specific African instrument. Okay, that will cause a very pleasing sound. It's almost like home. It's nice. It's around the fire. It's music. Oh, and what I wanted to say is now this, with line 15 before it, shows us how the community is like. These lines describe the community. And then on the road, remember it's on the road to Bailando, the porters. Okay, so now these, we are having a repetition here before I continue. On the road, the room, the bed, the burning coals. So this is all repetition. All repetition. So on the road, the porters, and let's just go back and we can compare it to here where it says on the road, the line of Bailando porters groaning under loads of Creera. So we're looking here at line 5, 6, and 7. So we can put that in here. Lines 5 to 7. This is repetition. Okay. And then let's look at the room with the mulatress in it. She is over here, the sweet, sweet-eyed mulatress. Remember, she's the mixed race woman. So that is line 9 and line 10 and line 11. So that is 9 lines 9 to 11. Again, repetition. Okay, and then we move on to the sleepless man in bed. There's just that one line for him. Let's see. Yeah. On the bed, the sleepless man thinking of buying knives and forks to eat with at a table. All right, so that is lines 12, 13, and 14. Okay, lines 12 to 14, repetition. Okay. When we move from here onwards, okay, now we've spoken about the porters again, we've spoken about the mulatress again, we've spoken about the sleepless man again, and then we talk about the reflections of the fire. So when we go back, you can see here that that is applicable here as well. The burning coals consuming with fire. Okay, burning, fire. Okay. This is a typical scene at the end of a night when the coals are dying and everyone has gone to bed. At night. And then it ends with the warm country of the horizons. So consuming with fire the warm country of the horizons. Now, when he talks here about the horizons, he's talking about something that's in the distance. I think we've said this. It's far off in the distance. And again, when it is said that the country is warm, again, two meanings that we can deduce from that is that it is either warm in terms of weather, or it can be warm in terms of tension. And if it's tension, then the fire and the burning and the other times that fire is mentioned, then it would mean tension. Okay, between the colonialists and the locals. If it's the weather, then we can look at the warm country as being Africa. Look, Africa is very hot, no matter where you go in Africa. Warm country, Africa. Africa is a big country, or it's a big continent. And there's so much to be found across the horizons. And for that warm, burning, destructive fire to come through from the colonialists would just destroy Africa even further. So the burning can be bad, but it can also be good. It stands in opposition to one another. Okay, so let's run through this quickly. We've got the natural beauty of Africa. When we talk about the fire, just notice here's fire again. And the dark silhouettes, the imbondeiro trees with their arms raised, the green smell of burnt palm trees. Then when we're talking about the workers that are going to Balondo to sell the loads that they are carrying. In the room, we have the mulatress, who is busy swaying, dancing, and she's putting on makeup. Maybe she's doing it for the evening celebrations. And then we are talking about the man that has plans, he has dreams, he is thinking about having these things that he believes he needs but not necessarily does, because these things are colonialist ideas. Here again, look at this fire down here. So fire in this poem is a motif that is being repeated continuously. So fire, like I said, can have the two meanings. I'm going to put them down here again. Fire can either equate to warmth, or it can equate to a destructive force. And if it is just warmth, that reminds us simply of natural Africa, because they use fires for warmth and for cooking. And if it is destructive force, we are looking at the colonialists and the influence they had on Africa. Okay. And there we go. I hope that is all. I hope that makes sense. I just want to check something here. Yes. Okay. All right, that's it for this poem. Please remember that if you are unsure about anything or you have extra questions, go down below in the comments, pop them in there. I will respond to every single comment. Okay. Have a good one.